Welcome to Air One Radio and Moonstruck TV with Amanda Hall, psychic from the Gold Coast in Australia. I'm very excited today. It's our very first show. So I'd like to welcome everybody here. I know we have a lot of viewers already tuning in from down under because the social media has been happening a fair bit over the last week with this exciting new project that we're working on here at Air One Radio and Moonstruck TV. So for those of you that don't know me around the world, let me introduce myself. My name's Amanda Hall, and I've been in the psychic industry for over 40 years here in Australia. I have been fortunate enough during my time as a psychic astrologer to work with some of the world's best people in the world, and I've learnt along the way from watching and learning from some of the world's greatest. So our main objective here on Amanda Hall Psychic Show is to encourage you to develop your own psychic ability. Yes, we are all psychic, and yes, we all have the opportunity to learn from each other. So over the next few shows, we're going to be talking a little bit about astrology. We'll be talking a little bit about tarot. We'll be taking some calls. So it's going to be a very exciting time here to tune in each week and learn a little bit along the way of the magic of what the psychic industry is all about. For those of you that don't know my psychic history, I was inducted into the Psychic Hall of Fame here in Australia back in 2013. And in the last 3 consecutive years, I've won Australian Psychic of the Year. So that just sort of gives you a little bit of my psychic history. My first passion is tarot, and we will get to share that over the next few weeks. I work with a set of cards called the Simply Tarot set that I was fortunate enough to design back in about 13 years ago with a publisher here in Australia called Hinkler Books. They have gone worldwide. For those of you that might have an interest in purchasing a set of tarot cards, might I suggest you just head to my social media page, Amanda Hall Psychic, on Facebook, and you'll find all the details and links there. So today I'd like to kick off our very first show with a little bit of an astrological flavour. For those of you that may not know a lot about astrology, well, stay tuned because we're going to learn a lot over the coming shows. But today I want to talk about a very important event that's happened just this week in astrology land, and that is that we've had, depending on which part of the world you're in, if you're in the northern hemisphere, we've had the spring equinox. If you're in the southern hemisphere, as I am, we've had the winter we call it the winter equinox here. So we're moving into a different time of the year. We're also celebrating the beginning of the astrological new year. So I know we all celebrate New Year's Eve and we bring in the new year at the beginning of the year, and then some people follow the Chinese New Year. Well, this is the astrology new year, and this symbols when the sun moves into the first sign, which is somewhere between about the 19th and the 22nd of the month of March. It changes every year depending on the wobble of the earth. This year it was on Monday, so we had it on the 20th. So it's very interesting that we've started the astrological new year. And what that means in layman's terms is for each and every one of us, it doesn't matter what your star sign is, it's a time for all of us to start new projects. So how fitting that we've started this brand new show in the brand new astrological year here with me, all from Australia. So each and every one of us should be looking at this week at something new that we can bring into our lives. And it doesn't have to be a major thing. It can be something simple. It can be something simple like deciding tomorrow you're going to get out of bed and have a smile on your face. And you're going to have a smile on your face all day. And you're not going to allow any negativity to creep in. That, we're going to start this astrological new year on a positive high, and we're going to try and stick to it as much as we can throughout the year with all the changes that happen. We're going to try and keep a positive slant this year. And I know that by working with many people around the world, there's lots and lots of changes going on. Politically, things have never been, in some people's eyes, more unstable or more different or more unpredictable. And this is part of, I suppose, the exciting changes that are taking place in the world. Whether we agree with what politicians are in power or not, that's not for me to say. All as I can say to you is astrologically, it's happening for the right reasons. So if we can stick to that and sort of maybe glean from that the things that are happening that we may not personally agree with overall are the best for the group consciousness to bring about change and to bring about things that we do need to focus on in the world. And, you know, there's lots of issues that people do need to focus on. And we as an individual can contribute just a little bit to that by trying to be positive and trying to be the best person that we can be. It's a very, very interesting astrological new year because this year to me has seen so many changes. A lot of people are questioning where they're going, what it's about. Am I in the right place? Am I being true to myself? And a lot of people are sort of saying no, no, no to the above questions. And then they say, but I don't know how to change. I don't know what to do about to bring change, to bring completeness in my life, to bring personal joy into my life. It's a time, I think, to soul search and ask ourselves, are we really where we want to be? And I'm not always talking about money when we talk about these things. Money only buys a certain type of happiness. It doesn't give us necessarily a complete happiness. Yes, it takes the stress off if you don't have to worry about where your next amount of money is coming from to pay your weekly bills, but it doesn't necessarily technically buy your happiness, and it certainly doesn't buy your health. And complete happiness to me is coming from within. It's asking yourself, if this was my last day on earth, have I completed everything that I wanted to achieve in my lifetime? Is there anything that if this was my last opportunity that I need to put right or I need to come to terms with or I need to let go of? And if you can answer yes to all of those, then that's a good thing. Then you've got complete happiness. So we've had some very, very interesting eclipses this year, and I know last month we saw two very powerful eclipses, a full moon eclipse and a new moon eclipse, and a lot of people felt the energy around that time and were very, very uncomfortable with the things from the past that it was the full moon eclipses were dredging up, and the new moon eclipse particularly dredged up even more, and it was a time for things to come floating to the surface. And it was a time for us to sort of look at it and say, do I need to keep this? Is it time to let go of it? Is it time to move on? And some people made some very quick snap decisions at that time, and then they sort of went into panic mode and said, oh my goodness, what have I done? Have I made the right decision? But if you made a decision that quickly, it must have been something that deep down in your soul was right for you to do. So please don't question whether or not you made the right decision and maybe I shouldn't have been so hasty. It was the time for those decisions to be made. So we always have to sort of look at where we're going on this amazing journey called life. And there's many of us that will take many, many different journeys throughout our lifetimes, and not always will everybody that's close to us agree with the journey that we're taking. And it's hard sometimes to try and be true to yourself and then satisfy the needs of family, friends, and people that are really important to us in our life and still not give up on the things that are important to us and our soul's journey. So I'd like to take this opportunity to invite you over the next week to maybe write down 3 things that you maybe might want to change in your life or things that you can progressively work on and start to sort of put some effort into that. They may be long-term plans, they may be short-term plans. It may just be something as simple as clearing out the closet, getting to the bottom of the ironing basket, taking yourself off to the day spa that you've been promising yourself for a long time. It's time now to sort of start to look at some little goals that we can all achieve. I work a lot with tarot and I work a lot with astrology, and both of them I'm very passionate about, but tarot was always my first love. For the simple reason I believe tarot could give us answers very, very quickly. And people always ask me, well, how can a deck of cards with pretty pictures on them and a few words give you answers to your life? Well, I say it's very simple. We all probably have the answers very deep inside our soul and our psyche somewhere, but the thing is we don't know how to trust them. And when we've got a tool like tarot cards that I'm holding up here, and we draw some of those out and we put them into a pattern and we form pictures and we form a story, we tend to trust that because it's something solid. It's something we can see in front of us that says, okay, this particular card means this. This particular card with another set of cards means another meaning, or gives us some guidelines or some insights into what may be the answer that we're seeking. So it is us that puts the energy into the reading. And it's an interesting concept when people say to me, well, how can that happen when I'm not sitting there in front of you? Well, I always say it's very easy. when you've asked to have a reading or you book a reading with someone, whether it be by telephone, email, or here on the show, you're actually giving permission for me to enter into your spirit guide. Your spirit guide makes connection with my spirit guide, and that's how a reading takes place. I don't read your mind. I don't tell you what you want to hear. Sometimes, the answers I might give you may be something that you think, oh, Amanda's very wrong. I don't believe in it that way, or I can't see that happening. All as I ask you to do is to take it on board and be open to the suggestion of the answers that are given. It's not always can we see that it's the answer that we may want to hear at that time. It's the answer that we need. And it's up to us then whether we work with it or we don't. We all always have free will. We all have the right to make changes and adjustments as we go along. Nothing that is given in a reading should be taken as this is set in concrete and there's no other way that our lives can unfold. We have to look at this as being, this is the opportunity for us to take on board the information, the knowledge, the wisdom that's been shared with us by our own spirit guides through me as the channel. Then we look at how we can bring common sense into this. What part am I going to be responsible for in this reading? How can I make this work for me? Is there something that I need to contribute, or do I just need to slow down and allow nature to take its course and things to unfold for us? So it's very, very interesting at the way that things actually sort of happen. So we need to be very aware of that, and we need to sort of make sure that life unfolds in the way that we need it to. So it's very, very positive at the way that we get things happening in our lives. So cards do give us the guidelines. That just switches on the channel for me to be able to go in clairvoyantly. And I know in this day and age we have a lot of times where people talk about many different types of the word clear. There's clairsentience, there's clairvoyant, there's clear this, there's clear that. Back in the day when I started, we used to only use one word, and it was called clairvoyant. That was the ability to see. And it was sort of like we grouped all the clairs under that heading, and we said to be clairvoyant meant the ability to smell, to sense, to feel, to see, to hear, to know. And it was all these other words have become more fashionable in the last few years, that people like to talk about all these different clairsentience and clairaudient and clear this, and everybody starts to get confused. So if we just stick with the one label, clairvoyant, which is the ability to see, but it is also the ability to bring in other sections of the clear section, I think that's the easiest way to look at things. And it's not something to be frightened of. If you don't connect with a reader or somebody that you're going to have the reading with, I always say to people, don't pursue it. If it doesn't feel right, then don't go ahead with that reading. You're better off offending that person and saying, thank you, but no thank you, I don't think this is right for me, than pursuing a reading with someone that you don't feel the right connection with. That's really important, because we don't sit in a hairdresser's chair and have a haircut if we don't feel comfortable with our hairdresser, or the same if we go to a medical practitioner, we don't necessarily go back if we didn't feel a connection. The same should be said for any psychic or any healer that you attend. So I hope you're going to enjoy the journey as we take our way through many different areas of astrology and tarot over the coming shows. And please feel free to leave some comments on my Facebook page. If there's a particular topic that you'd like to know a little bit more about, and if I'm able to answer that for you, I will on the show. There's many areas I know of astrology that people sort of get a little bit confused with and think, gee, I don't understand what that means, or they talk in these words that sort of seem like they're talking a foreign language to me. I will try and keep it as simple as possible so that you will understand what we are talking about, but still allowing the technical terms of astrology to be shared with everybody as well. So it's going to be a very interesting journey as we head forward. So today, to kick off the show, I'm going to shuffle the cards, and I'm going to draw out just one card. And I'm going to look at this as being the card for the show that we can all sort of share. Now, it's very, very interesting. The card I've drawn is the Three of Cups. Now, the Three of Cups, if I was to read the message on the bottom of the card, which is what I personally put on the cards when they were being designed, is celebration, bright happenings. Now, isn't that interesting that we've drawn the Three of Cups on this very, very, very first show so that we understand how we've got a celebration happening. The cards do give us the answers that is required. And yes, I do collectively do a card of the day on my Facebook page most days. And I do that because people like to be able to tune in, feel connected, feel part of the Amanda Hall Psychic family, and feel that we can share things. And, you know, sometimes people say, oh, that wasn't for me today, but it might be for someone else. And a lot of times people say, wow, thank you, that was the message that I needed today. So I hope over the time that we can answer a few more questions and things that are going on in your life so that you can understand some of the things that we need to be sort of looking at in our lives as we extend our journey and our knowledge of understanding all things psychic. It was a really interesting journey for me when I started out as a psychic, and I'm sure many people have heard stories about people that they say they were born that way. I do believe some of the most gifted psychics and astrologers and healers I've worked with in the world were born that way. It's something that I don't think that they necessarily particularly wanted to have as a skill. It's something that they usually fight, they try and ignore, they try and push it away, but somewhere along the lines they keep being drawn back into it. And it's, for me, I say I didn't have a choice. As much as I tried to walk away from it and do other things in my life, I always seemed to be pulled back to being in the psychic industry. I can remember being a little child under 5 and remembering things that no one else could have known. And in those days, we didn't all have telephones in our house and things like that. And I can remember saying things to my mother about different people in the family were coming to visit, and she wasn't the world's greatest house cleaner, that she might not want to start tidying up a bit. And she'd sort of, you know, say, oh, don't be so silly, you know, and all this sort of thing. And right, sure enough, the time would come and there would be people there that would be coming to visit that she wasn't expecting. So it was sort of like frowned upon in my family. I came from a very religious background, and to talk about anything, seeing things or hearing things or having ghostly experiences was something that was very, very much frowned upon, and it was something that certainly wasn't spoken about. I can remember my mother's aunt, who was very, very flamboyant and a very beautiful lady. She seemed to be the different one in the family. Everybody else was sort of straight-laced and very religious. And I'm not saying my Aunt Edna wasn't religious. She just had a different flair about her. And she always had the most beautiful hats and the most beautiful dresses. And her and I had an amazing connection. And she was the first one that introduced me to some of the psychic stuff when I was around 7. And she just knew. I think she just knew that I had a gift and nobody else was going to talk about it. Nobody else was going to share it with me. So she encouraged me to work with that, even at that young age, at a level that I could understand, and taught me not to be frightened of it. And she taught me to sort of accept it as being normal, that if I had a visit in the middle of the night from somebody that was passing over or had just passed over, that was okay, that it was very acceptable, that, you know, I didn't necessarily have to share it with other members of the family, but I could wait until the next time she visited and we could have a talk about it. So that was very comforting to me, because many things did happen like that, where I did get visitations from people as they were passing over, which I didn't understand, being, you know, 7, 8 and 9, that could happen at the time that their soul was leaving the physical body, and why were they choosing me to come to pass on a message or to say everything was going to be all right. It was just they must have felt comfortable with me, and it was the way it was. So fortunately for me, with my aunt, she showed me things that other people probably would have considered abnormal or obscure, or that shouldn't be taught to a child that age. She taught me to read tea leaves. She taught me to sort of look for signs in nature. She taught me to take notice of things, that, you know, if a cloud was forming a picture, there was a message in it. If the wind was blowing a different way, or if the animals around the bush were behaving differently, then there was a reason for that, to take notice of these things. So I suppose, in a sense, my psychic apprenticeship, you could say, was the journey of life. And it was something that I always had a healthy interest in, but being a young child, didn't know where to go to look for answers to this sort of thing. It wasn't the sort of thing you could go to the local library and pick up a book on tarot cards or how to read ordinary playing cards or things like that. So it was something that, as I went along, my instincts or my psychic ability became stronger with me. And it was something that I learnt to sort of not talk about much to many people, because if I did, it would have been considered there was something wrong with me. Did I have a mental illness? Well, she's a bit strange. So I learnt to sort of keep that from most people and just go about my day-to-day life. And it was very, very interesting, because as I started out my career as a grown-up, I started out hairdressing to begin with, and I didn't particularly like that. But it was a good training ground for a psychic, because as you're washing and attending to people's hair, they're telling you their life history, and you're all of a sudden giving them answers, and they say, oh, wow, where'd you get that from? And I think, well, that must have been a fluke. But it was obviously the start of my psychic training and working with people, that I was being given messages by spirit at that point in time that I didn't understand. I just didn't know where it was coming from. I'm busy washing Mrs. Smith's hair, and all of a sudden I've answered a question. Oh, that was a fluke. And so I progressed from there, and I went into the film industry. And it was in times of downtimes waiting to do, for the next project to come through the door, or we were waiting for something to come back from the laboratory that had to be developed, I started working with ordinary playing cards as something to do, something to entertain, us all, while we all had different party tricks, as I called them in those days. And a lot of people kept coming back and asking me for further readings. They said it was really accurate, because I used to say it was just a bit of fun. So there was lots of different dimensions to me actually learning to work with the psychic stuff. So it was really interesting, because as I developed further and further and further, I was very, very drawn to tarot cards. Tarot cards was something I was incredibly fascinated by. I'd seen them in the movies. I'd seen them in books. I really wanted to get hold of a set, and I didn't know where to go and buy them. And luckily, a girlfriend of mine bought me my very first set as a present. And strangely enough, she found them in a Bible shop. And she brought them to me, and she said to me, oh, we'll have fun. And we opened up this little book, and we started to do a reading, and everything was very negative and very, doom and gloom and all that sort of stuff. And I said, just look, I don't agree with all this. I said, how about, I said, you just shuffle the cards. I said, and I'll tell you what I can see from them. So I started to do that, and the messages started to flow. And I started to be aware of that I was getting sort of like visions in what I now know to be my third eye. And it was like they were running it through my mind like a videotape. And all of a sudden I could start to describe events and situations and things and timing. And she was sitting there, and she's quickly writing everything down, saying, this is amazing. And things started to happen. So I started to work with the tarot more and more. And it was a very good tool to start with, because, I didn't believe that I had any magical power or any insight into this, and people were coming and having readings and coming back and telling me how good it was, and started, wanting to make appointments and everything like that. And that went on for a couple of years before I suppose I really believed that what I was doing had some sort of merit. And it was from then on that I still didn't take it up as a profession as such. It was something I just did as a hobby. And I never really believed it was going to become my life's work. Yes, I was fascinated in it. Yes, I was drawn to it. But I still believed that life had some other big plan for me, that I was going to go on and work in business or something like that. I one stage wanted to be a naturopath, and another stage I wanted to be a lawyer. And it was sort of like, but this kept pulling me back. And as different circumstances changed in my life, it became very obvious that I couldn't ignore this, that life created things that I couldn't change, and I had no choice but to go into this, and it then became my life's work. And I'm not sorry. Okay, I can't see anything on the screen, though. Okay. We're in New York now, and we're going to be answering a caller's question that's coming in now. Dave's going to read it out for me, I think. Mark. Hi, Mark. How can we help you?
Hello?
Hello. How can we help you? This is Amanda.
Hi, Amanda. I'm pretty much open to, I guess, any life advice you have to give, but I'm definitely looking for something in the realm of jobs.
Your job. Okay, let's have a look at that for you. All right, I'm going to shuffle just a few cards. I'm just going to take out 3 or 4 cards here. The first thing I'm picking up here is that I do feel that there is going to be another job for you. I wish I could say it was going to be next week. I still think that there's a little bit of waiting time. What I'm picking up is the last few months have been about really organising your life, organising your time, going through things, clearing out the closets, clearing out things out of your life that are no longer necessary. So it's now we're almost on the precipice of totally brand new beginnings, of things about to blossom for you. It's like spring has sprung. This is your personal spring. It's your personal springtime is happening now. And I think over the next couple of weeks, you're going to get some really good ideas that are going to come into your mind. But I am seeing a new job, and I think it's going to be about a month away. So I want you to keep continuing to apply for positions and looking at positions and getting to the point where we can sort of say to ourselves, okay, this is great. This is what I need. I need to have new opportunities happening for me, and they will be happening. And I feel that the new job won't be that far from home, and I think it'll be in an area that brings more of your skill set out than what you've been able to work with in the past. So it's really looking good. So I feel the next 6 months are going to...
I'm sorry, you see it bringing more of...
You're going to be bringing in more changes, but the new job, I think, is about a month away.
Okay. So the current job that I have now,
I don't see you staying. I feel there's going to be another opportunity for you.
Okay. That's exciting.
This one looks a bit more positive, with better money and better conditions, and an ability to be able to use more of your skills that you haven't been using in recent years.
Okay.
But you've got some very exciting times ahead of you over the next few months. So you need to be open to go with those changes, because it's like you've gone through a crossroads where you didn't know where you were going and what you wanted to bring in. This current position that you're in, to me, I don't see any opportunity for advancement there. It's like you've gone as far as you can go with that. And that's why I feel it's going to be a new position.
Okay. Okay, the possibility of a new position just literally happened today, and it was completely mind-blowing, because this morning, as I'm having my coffee right before going to work, I was like, it would be wonderful if I could work in this area. And then that's exactly where the call came from.
Good, take it. I think it's great. I think it's the time for you to be spreading your wings, search new horizons.